My wife changed the locks while I was at my mother's funeral. Today, the judge granted my request to declare our marriage void from the beginning. The Uber receipt showed my wife paid for the ride at 2:17 p.m., exactly 12 minutes after my mother's casket was lowered into the ground. I stood in our driveway at midnight, my suit still smelling of funeral flowers, twisting a key that no longer worked in our front door. Through the window, I could see new furniture, a cream-colored sectional we'd never owned, a glass coffee table with 2 champagne flutes still half full. My phone buzzed with her text, "Stay somewhere else tonight. I need space to grieve." But the security camera footage I pulled up on my app told a different story. At 4:30 p.m., while I'd been kneeling in the cemetery dirt scattering my mother's ashes, she'd been scattering her clothes across our bed, with my former best friend Mark helping. The timestamp burned into my retinas, June 12 to 4:47 p.m., the day we buried my mother. The day she killed our marriage. The security feed showed them laughing as they carried boxes of my belongings into the garage. Her diamond wedding band, the one I'd spent 6 months saving for, sat abandoned on the bathroom sink. I took one last look at our home security pin notification on my phone. System reset, 3:02 p.m. Right during my mother's eulogy. That's when I realized, this wasn't impulsive. The locks, the furniture, the timing, all meticulously planned to coincide with the one day I'd be too broken to fight back. The Uber app notified me my ride was arriving. I didn't call it. But when the car pulled up, I got in anyway, because the license plate matched the one from her receipt. The driver confirmed what I already knew. "Yeah bro, your wife scheduled this pickup days ago. Said you'd need it after the funeral." The courier arrived at 7:03 a.m. with a thick manila envelope that smelled like my wife's perfume. Inside were 37 pages of legal demands that would have been laughable if they weren't so meticulously cruel. The house, wife has emotional attachment to marital residence. And my 18% stake in the tech startup I'd founded, wife provided moral support during company's formative years. And my father's vintage Rolex, sentimental gift given during marriage. But it was page 17 that made my hand shake, the section about our prenuptial agreement. Her lawyer had attached a copy missing the entire infidelity clause, with a post-it note reading, "Per our review, no such provision exists in executed agreement." I nearly missed the watermark in my rage. Waterstone Legal Group, Mark's firm. My former college roommate. The best man at our wedding. The man currently fucking my wife in our bed. The realization hit like a physical blow. They'd planned this for years. Mark had drafted our prenup. Mark had convinced me to sign without independent counsel. And now Mark was using his legal expertise to help my wife steal everything. I called every divorce attorney in the city that morning. All 12 consultations ended the same way. With this prenup version, she's entitled to. Mr. Waterstone is very connected at this court. Your best option is to negotiate a. At 3:47 p.m., I did exactly what they expected. I signed the papers with trembling hands and mailed them back. But not before making 3 copies. Not before photographing every page under UV light. And certainly not before noticing the faint pencil marks around every major asset, tiny check marks only visible at certain angles. They'd literally made a checklist of my life to steal. The phone rang at 5:18 a.m. on the 7th day after my mother's death. The funeral director's voice was hushed, urgent. "Your mother left specific instructions. There's a safety deposit box at First National under your childhood nickname. She said to open it only if..." A pause. "Only if your marriage ended." The bank manager recognized me immediately. Ah yes. Mrs. Carter updated these documents 3 weeks before she passed. Very insistent about the timing. The metal box contained 1. Photographs, my wife and Mark at the Harborview Hotel, dated 2 weeks before our wedding. She wore the same lace dress she'd later claim was just for me at our rehearsal dinner. 2. Legal documents. The original prenup with alterations highlighted in neon pink. Entire sections about infidelity and asset protection had been crossed out, with Mark's handwritten notes in the margins, replaced with standard boilerplate, and client won't notice. 3. A letter, my mother's shaky handwriting. James. If you're reading this, she's made her move. 1. Check the trust documents from 2018. 2. The security cameras at the summer house are motion activated. 3. Remember, Some fires need oxygen to burn. Love, Mom, *. I nearly missed the tiny flash drive taped behind her photo. It contained 47 video files from our Cape Cod property, every time Mark had visited while I was traveling for work. The timestamps told the real story of my marriage. March 12, 2021, my birthday. She told me she was visiting her sick aunt. The footage showed them toasting with my favorite scotch. September 8, 2022, our anniversary. They recreated our wedding night, right down to the playlist. April 3, 2023, the day my mother entered hospice. They celebrated with champagne in our bed. The final file was dated the morning of the funeral. Mark handing my wife a set of lockpicks, just in case he changes the codes. Sarah Waterstone's LinkedIn photo didn't do justice to the exhausted woman who slid into my diner booth at 11:47 p.m. Her nails were bitten to the quick, a coffee stain streaking her blouse. "He's embezzling client retainers," she whispered, pushing a manila envelope across the table. 300,000 last quarter alone. The gambling debts are worse. He owes the Bellagio over $500,000. The documents inside were damning. Altered timesheets. Mark billing 97-hour weeks while his Uber receipts showed him at casinos. Forged client signatures. On settlement checks he diverted to offshore accounts. Text messages between Mark and my wife discussing which of my assets to target first. "Why tell me?" I asked. Sarah's hands shook around her coffee cup. "Because last month he had me notarize your wife's signature on a quitclaim deed for your house. I checked the cameras. She never came to the office." She pulled up a video on her phone showing Mark forging the signature while laughing with a paralegal. "He's going to disbar me too when this blows up," she said. Then handed me the nuclear option, a USB drive containing every version of our prenup, including 1. The original file with Mark's handwritten notes, remove infidelity clause, groom won't check. 2. The altered PDF timestamps proving changes were made after our signatures. 3. An email chain with my wife titled, Asset Stripping Timeline. The final email chilled me. "Once his mom dies, we move fast. House first, then the startup shares. His dad's watch should cover your casino markers. Remember, grief makes people stupid." Sent 3 days before my mother's diagnosis. I spent 3 nights creating the perfect financial trap. The fake documents looked authentic enough to pass casual inspection, but contained deliberate flaws only an expert would catch. A bank statement showing mysterious monthly withdrawals from a Cayman account. The routing number actually went to an IRS holding fund. Emails between me and a business partner discussing hidden assets, sent from a spoofed account I controlled. Text messages about a safety deposit box key hidden in my mother's casket, planted in my own phone's backup files. I left this evidence conspicuously. Printed pages in my gym locker. A notebook accidentally left at our old coffee shop. I even had Sarah leak files to Mark's team. The reaction came faster than expected. At 3:17 a.m., my security cameras caught Mark and my wife tearing apart my storage unit. They took everything, including the decoy safe containing 1. A fake will naming my wife as sole beneficiary. 2. Forged stock certificates for a defunct company. 3. A map to buried assets at my mother's grave. Their greed blinded them to the obvious. The safe's interior was lined with RFID tags. Every document contained UV-visible tracking dots. And the map coordinates led directly to federal parkland. When Mark filed an emergency motion accusing me of hiding assets, I didn't object. I simply handed the judge a sealed envelope containing the GPS logs of them trespassing at the cemetery. Photos of them violating the storage unit's lock. The original prenup with intact infidelity clause. The courtroom went silent when the judge held up the UV light. Mark's fingerprints glowed neon pink on every altered page. The State Bar Association moved with terrifying efficiency once they received my evidence packet. By noon the next day, 2 armed investigators marched into Waterstone Legal Group and seized every computer hard drive. 17 years of case files. Even the framed degrees from Mark's office wall. The disciplinary complaint read like a crime novel. Count 1. Fraudulent alteration of executed legal documents, our prenup. Count 2. Conspiracy to commit larceny, the forged quitclaim deed. Count 3, suborning perjury, my wife's sworn financial affidavit. But the real masterpiece was my wife's Instagram. Her carefully curated new chapter posts became damning evidence. A yacht photo, #blessed, geotagged to the Caymans on the same day she claimed to be grieving at home. A diamond earrings, treat yourself, matching those purchased with embezzled client funds. Even a since-deleted story showing Mark's home office, with my father's stolen Rolex clearly visible on his desk. The final nail came from an unexpected source, the Bellagio's legal team. When news of Mark's disbarment broke, they immediately filed a $587,000 civil suit, attaching records of every text he'd ever sent from their casino floor, including one to my wife the night before my mother's funeral. Stop worrying. By this time tomorrow, you'll be rich and he'll be homeless. The divorce hearing began like any other, until I raised my hand and said, "Your Honor, before we proceed, I have a jurisdictional question." The entire courtroom froze when I played the security footage from our wedding venue. The timestamp in the corner read June 15, 2019 for 32 p.m. as the officiant, Mark's cousin, as it turned out, pocketed the unsigned marriage license and whispered to my wife, "Don't worry, I'll backdate it later." The judge's face turned volcanic. "Mr. Waterstone, care to explain why the court's records show a certified marriage license that clearly wasn't executed?" Mark's objection died in his throat when the clerk produced 1. The original unsigned license, retrieved from the venue's safe. 2. The forged version filed with the county. 3. Text messages between Mark and the officiant splitting the $15,000 my wife paid to make it legal. The courtroom erupted when the judge declared, this marriage never legally existed. Which meant no divorce proceedings, no alimony, no claim to any assets. My wife's scream echoed through the chamber, "You can't do this." The bailiffs had to restrain her when the judge ordered her to return every gift I'd ever given, 50% of her income during our marriage, even the engagement ring. The IRS letter arrived like a thunderbolt. My ex-wife was being audited for nearly $2 million in unreported income and fraudulent tax claims. Every diamond, every vacation, every gift I'd given during our marriage was now being treated as taxable income by the federal government. But that was just the beginning. Federal agents raided Mark's law office the next morning. His gambling addiction had spiraled out of control. He'd been stealing from client trust accounts to pay his casino debts. The evidence was damning. 1. Wire fraud. He transferred client settlement money directly to Vegas casinos. 2. Tax evasion. All those business trips were actually gambling binges. 3. Money laundering. Using my wife's fake interior design business to clean the stolen cash. The most shocking discovery? A spreadsheet titled The Plan on Mark's computer. It detailed every asset they intended to steal from me, with exact timelines. Our house target date, 30 days after my mother's funeral. My startup shares, 60 days after. Even my life insurance policy, 90 days out. Meanwhile, my wife's Instagram told its own story. Her last post showed her packing designer luggage with the caption, "Some people can't handle a strong woman." What she didn't notice. The reflection in the mirror, a process server holding foreclosure papers for her new apartment. The courthouse elevator doors opened to reveal my ex-wife and Mark huddled with their new lawyer. The moment they saw me, her designer heels clicked furiously across the marble floor. "You did this," she screamed, her once perfect manicure now chipped and ragged. I calmly pressed play on my phone. Her own voice filled the hallway. "Once his mom dies, we take everything. The house first, then the business. That stupid watch of his father's should cover your Vegas debts." Mark lunged for the device, but federal agents materialized from the courtroom doors. "Mark Waterstone," the lead agent announced, "you're under arrest for wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit larceny." As the cuffs clicked shut, I handed the prosecutor my mother's final gift, a notarized letter from her oncologist. Patient was fully lucid when she amended her trust on April 1st, leaving everything to her son alone. She specifically warned about predatory influences in his marriage. The document was dated 3 hours before my wife had changed the locks. 1 year to the day after the funeral, I returned to the gas station where it all began. The same clerk still worked there, older, grayer, but with the same knowing eyes. "Heard about what happened," he said, sliding a coffee across the counter. Saw her picture in the paper last week. The article lay folded by the register. Disgraced attorney sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Below it, a smaller headline. Socialite wife ordered to repay $1.4 million in divorce settlement. I left a $100 tip and drove to our old house, my house now. The new locks gleamed in the morning sun as I hung the final piece of decor. My mother's portrait in the foyer, positioned perfectly to watch over the empty space where their bed used to be. On my way out, I passed a bus stop. There she was, my ex-wife, clutching an eviction notice and screaming into her phone. Our eyes met just long enough for me to hold up the keys and drop them down a storm drain. The bus pulled away as her shriek echoed down the street. Somewhere, I like to think my mother was laughing.